is managing to not pay its debt and underperform the forecast in an absolutely lovely fashion. And who did the? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Who did the?
We didn't know whether to be a test this morning, Professor.
Forecast for the Sheraton Overland Park.
HVS.
It would be HVS. And then if we skip the Puerto Rico Convention Center hotel complex, which is not entirely up and operating yet, we get to the DoubleTree Hotel and Conference Center in Bay City, Michigan. And that's a particularly lovely project because it has never been able to pay its debt service. And pretty soon it will run out of money in its reserves. And that's very easy to see if you know where to look. These are not secrets. And I should add, I'm sorry to put you on the spot again.
You're a taskmaster.
Chris
baby.
says it's written on his hand. He's cheating over here.
And you wanna venture who did the feasibility studies on the beautiful Bay City DoubleTree?
HVS.
That would be HVS.
Oh.
So
I'm in shock here. I'm in shock.
You know, and it's not rocket science to look at this. It's about 5 minutes of fiddling around on the web with the search engine of your choice.
Well, believe it or not, our discussion has inspired a couple of calls. So let's go to the phone. Let's go to Mike he wants to ask about Wichita's new hotel. I guess he's very interested. Yes, Ed? Oh, hey, Mike. What's up, buddy?
Hi. I lived in Wichita, Kansas for about 20 years and just find this a delightful organization.
I'm sorry, Mike, you have my sympathy.
No, it's a wonderful city, quite frankly. Started out thinking the same thing. But, I think that they developed a Hyatt there near their convention center with private money. And they had conventions in that city constantly. It was just constant conventions. But I also would point out that their business bureau or whoever was charged of that was constantly selling that city. And, of course, originally they were in the middle of the Midwest, but their airport charged fees as high or higher than Chicago O'Hare. It was very difficult to get to, but it was always amazing to see that hotel and convention center was just constantly full of various, ranging from religious events on up.
Can we talk about the lovely Century 2 Center in Wichita for a moment?
Sure.
Go.
That Hyatt hotel that's adjacent was actually originally built with private money, but because it ran into a series of financial problems, It is now wholly owned by the city of Wichita.
Ah, okay. I always wondered about that. We left there,
Yeah, well, you might not, and I don't mean to be difficult about this, but there's usually a backstory, and the Century 2 Center has in fact been steadily losing business. As best I can tell, the city's not terribly accommodating about providing information on its performance, but it's been steadily losing business in recent years. The city has decided that they need another hotel nearby, and so they have offered a pretty generous subsidy deal for another hotel nearby. Wichita wants to revive its downtown, such as it is. And
the point I was going to make is that they weren't selling it with attractions because, unlike Tucson, for example, there are virtually none by comparison. And when I hear these arguments about, 100,000 visitors will show up if only we do this, I have to endorse your argument. It's failed wherever it's been tried.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the call, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. And I'm sorry to pick on you about Wichita.
Hey, they got some great museums there. They have the Ball of Twine Museum there. It's awesome. Hey, let's go to let's get a couple of calls. Real quick question. I want to go to break, and then we got one more segment. Barney, real quick, buddy. What's up, Barney?
Good morning, guys. I can't really add much to what the professor's saying because this has been a terrific explanation of why government should stick to its core responsibilities and let the financial risks be handled by those who have a direct financial stake. But I do have a question. Professor, have you ever looked into light rail?
Oh, my.
Oh, you got him going on that. Look at it.
Well, we don't have a light rail. We have a
streetcar.
Modern streetcar. We don't even have light rail.
I bet you the explanations are very parallel.
Well, they are. And, in fact, they're driven, frankly. The politics of this is all driven by this kind of lust for downtown development. One of the definitive articles by a researcher on this a number of years ago was a piece by a fellow named Don Pickrell at the MIT Transportation Research Center called A Desire Named Streetcar. And a wonderful piece, if you ever want to deal with it, by a great economist named John Kane on strategic misrepresentation in Dallas. John went back and looked at the forecasts and promises in Dallas and found that precisely how absurd they were, and made it very clear that basically the systems proponents and the engineering consultants fudged all the ridership forecasts, etc.
Yep. So would you agree that government's best actions in this are just to give incentives to private money and get the heck out of the way?
That's in part an ideological argument, and I prefer to deal with this stuff just on a pretty straightforward empirical basis. Does it work? And the answer is no. It's dumb.
Yeah.
And
Barney, thank you for the call.
It's dumb. It's doing what every other city of any size in the country is doing, including Bay City, Michigan.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. People are not going to come, and the business is not there. And anyone who thinks they will, or purports that such a project will in fact work, is either a fool or a scoundrel, in my judgment.
Well, let's run to break, and we'll come back on with Heywood. But one of the bigger dialogues is the role of convention center occupancy, isn't it? As these get built all over the country, there's and less of a pool.
Do that?
Yeah, to play with that, yeah.
All right, Heywood, thanks. Hold on for two more minutes, all right, buddy? All right, we got Professor Heywood Sanders. We're going to do one last segment. We're talking about the reality of publicly financed hotels, convention centers, and other kind of things. So wake up, Tucson, 10:30, The Voice.
Join the conversation and be part of the solution as we Wake Up Tucson with Joe Higgins and Christy Simone on 1030 KVOI. The Voice.
All right, we're finishing off an eye-opening hour with Professor Heywood Sanders. Joe, it's really nice to hear some basic reality from someone who doesn't live in this town that's drinking the Kool-Aid.
Well, and again, to look at this at a bigger scope, let's look at some histories of other communities that have tried it and done it.
Yep.
And Professor Sanders, welcome back to the show.
It's nice to be back.
We talked a little bit before the break about the role of capacity. Because that's a real concern. You have A markets, which are your Vegas, your San Diego, your the big ones, and then you have the B and C markets, and they're all competing for a smaller and smaller pie of convention business. Correct?
Absolutely. And what's happened is there's been an enormous boom in the supply of convention center space around the country. This is a game lots of cities can play. Every one of them armed with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 consultant studies that say how wonderfully they'll do. And so we've seen what amounts to a 34% increase from 2000 to 2009 in the available supply of convention center exhibit space.
Sure.
They're growing like topsy, and it's exemplified nearby. I mean, Phoenix effectively tripled the size of its convention center just about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, they spent $650 million on that upgrade.
And threw in a 1,000-room hotel to boot. And in their case, the state picked up half the tab, so they were able to tell Phoenix voters that this is a great deal. You get 2 for 1, in essence.
Right.
Denver doubled the size of its convention center. We've got major expansions underway in places like Philadelphia and Indianapolis right now, and then the latest incarnation, which you all have seen and enjoyed, and that's the argument that you need a hotel next door. And so in Salt Lake, some folks are pressing for a 1,000-room hotel, a 1,000-room hotel in Kansas